trying to show him we are more than meets the eye.
Oh, no.
Transformers 1. Yes, the Autobots and the Decepticons have returned to the big screen to once again present their never-ending fight against each other. However, unlike their previous feature-length battles, this movie promises to be a lot more different. Not only is this their first fully animated feature in almost 4 decades, but since this is meant to be a prequel of the whole franchise, there are also no human characters. No Shia LaBeouf, no John Turturro, no Mark Wahlberg, no John Cena, no Anthony Ramos, just a cast that purely consists of Transformers from Cybertron. And I'll be honest, I'm actually intrigued to see what this movie has in store. Okay, sure, the fact that it's an animated film will definitely grab my attention, but what caught my interest specifically is that it got Toy Story 4 director Josh Cooley to take the helm. And I unapologetically love the fourth as much as the other Toy Story films, so I'm optimistically curious to see how Cooley and his team will play with these toys. That, and the idea of a no-human Transformers movie does sound like it could have more potential than the Michael Bay films by putting the focus entirely on what audiences want to see the most. Even if I don't consider myself to be a major Transformers fan, I did a bit of preparation for this experience and watched their first theatrically released animated feature, The Transformers the Movie. It's not really my cup of tea, but I could see how this is a fan favorite with how it is action-packed from beginning to end. That, and I don't think there is any other animated film that can be more 1980s than this. Even before watching one, it's hard to imagine that movie will have a moment that is as memorably cheesy as the time when the Autobots decided to stop everything just to dance to Weird Al. So now that we're going back to where the rivalry all began, will this be the one Transformers movie that will be considered the best? Or will I see this movie like how the Autobots and the Decepticons see each other? Let's find out. The story. The main purpose of this movie is to present the first chapters of the Transformers lore. It's not just about how the Autobots and the Decepticons were formed, but also how did Cybertron come to be? Who were the first Transformers? What led the two sides to fight against each other? And especially, how did Optimus Prime and Megatron become enemies when they were once best friends?
How long do you think we'll be here?
I'm not talking to you.
You know what? We are so screwed.
Thought you weren't talking to me.
I do acknowledge that there is a challenge that comes with making a prequel like this. Since this is based on a popular franchise with a well-known backstory that even non-fans are familiar with, it's tricky to create a plot that can make people forget about that outcome and get them engaged with the journey as it slowly unravels its world into what we know it today. As the film begins, it does seem interesting with how it presents the early days of Cybertron and show this entire planet that's run by robots. But as we follow these two mischievous miners with one that wants to be, well, more than meets the eye, there is a little concern that the movie is turning Transformers into just another animated kids flick.
Why'd you bring jetpacks?
If we survive this, I'm gonna kill you.
I accept those terms.
The story kind of gives off that Chosen One vibe, and some characters encompass the recycled tropes that they play. On paper, the script follows a familiar path with the same kind of cast and the same kind of twist that these types of features have, making it hard to sell if you just describe what this movie is about. That, and the comedy can be pretty mixed. I won't say that this isn't funny at all, because there were times when it did deliver moments that gave me a good laugh. But it's obvious that being funny is not the film's highest priority, and not every joke they make will land. Especially with B's ramblings that left me feeling like some of the bots next to him.
Badassatron.
You like that, right?
Badass.
I'm gonna need you to talk less.
However, while it may not sound impressive in concept, it does have a little secret that more than makes up for it. I'll be repeating this a few times, but the key that makes one stand out from all the other Transformers movies is that it's the kind of film that gets progressively better as it continues. You see, the core of the feature comprises of the world building and the relationship between the two leads. As it goes deeper into what actually happened in Cybertron and the fate of the first Primes, that's when the movie shifts from a ragtag team of outcasts trying to find a better purpose to revealing some of the dark secrets of the origins and how it affects the dynamic of the group. From there, the movie becomes more serious, more intense, and even more violent as they not only have to confront the villain and expose their corruption, but also endure the tension between the two friends as their goals shift and highlight their newfound different philosophies to show how their paths influence who they ultimately become.
Maybe it's just me, but he's different.
Yeah, no, I picked up on that.
I picked up on that too.
And that's where the film becomes increasingly engaging with the way it raises the stakes for both Cybertron and the two main Transformers. It gradually presents the origins of its lore to show the good and the bad that happen so that it adds to the film's immersion, and it does a good job to make it in a way that both fans and non-fans can follow to understand what is happening in Cybertron. It also functions as the driving force to the emotions of the characters, seeing their personalities transform in real time with how they react to some of the new information they gathered. Rather it be to set things right and get closer to finding the matrix of leadership to recover Cybertron, or to destroy those who betrayed what they stood for. And the more that their mission becomes clear to them, the more that their dynamic becomes dramatic.
Decepticons! Rise up! Incoming!
This is a great example of how storytelling can make or break a movie. Thanks to the intricate writing and keen directing, the movie was able to take a story that seems rather ordinary at first and transformed it into something that's brutally extraordinary. The animation. Even if this is brought to us by Paramount Animation, the animation itself was actually done by Industrial Lights and Magic, the same studio who worked on the visual effects of the Michael Bay Transformers films. But unlike those live-action pictures, Transformers 1 took a different approach for the look of the robots in the skies. Instead of filling the designs with as many intricate details they can fill in so that you see every screw and every gear that makes them function, the robots in this film return to their roots to look a little more reminiscent to the toys that they were based on, including a more human-like face that's all silver and shiny. I'll admit that it seems a bit weird at first, but then I realized that it gives them a retro look that reminds me of the early CG TV shows from the 1990s like Beast Wars. Sure, that's technically the spiritual successor, but they're still Transformers nonetheless, and that's why it naturally fits them as a 3D version of the original designs.
We need to hurry. I still think we have better odds fighting than outrunning them.
Wait, we have cogs. We can transform now.
And since this is set in Cybertron, the grand majority of everything in the film, from the environment to the characters, are made of metal, resulting in a creative use of effects, lighting, textures, and colors. It allows the animation team to be more creative with the production design being more chromed, and have the overall style with the characters together looking colorful in a different way. I wouldn't say that the color palette is very vibrant, but it does work to sell that the robots can have the ability to transform into vehicles and still make it interesting to catch our eyes' attention.
The Iacon 5000 has begun.
I'm sorry, are those miners in the race?
It's also cool to see how they think outside the box to show what they do when the light reflects upon the environment, or the kind of effects that comes out of them, like the little glow in their eyes, or see some of their inner workings to show their more robotic side. However, there are some elements that are more natural, which helps enhance the world building. There aren't just animal robots that can be found in the surface, but also some greenery, dangerous winds, and rocks that come to life. And before the Decepticons, the former main enemies of Cybertron were the Quintessons, which are more alien-like with their tentacles and have a more threatening presence who look like they'd have no problem dismantling a Prime.
Guys?
That's not good.
But just like the story, the animation gets increasingly better as it progresses. And while it established a good base at the start, the creativity gradually becomes stronger. If you're the kind who enjoys the live-action Transformers movies because of the cool action, you'll find that same thrill in here. There are plenty of action scenes that can be found to have you at the edge of your seat to see the bots dodging life-threatening obstacles and using their weapons to fight each other. But with each of those scenes, they gradually get more intense, and the cinematography widens the scale to make them look bigger. And when the risk increases, so does the violence where, even if they're all robots, the fights become more ruthless, and their powers become stronger that makes them either look greater or more threatening. And of course, I cannot talk about a Transformers movie without mentioning their ability to transform. In terms of the lore, I really like how transforming is an integral part of the world building. And as the characters gain this ability, they enhance the action as they learn how to use them and have it reshape their designs to become upgraded. But it doesn't take long for them to understand how it works and make the most for the scenes to feel distinctively like the kind of Transformer-style action that audiences want to see.
Come on!
Taking the Transformers and put them in a movie has already been done several times. But one takes the Transformers that fans know and love for many years and brings them to life with some incredible animation. The characters. Maybe they are a little different than how people remember them. I know that many were thrown off at first with the movie suggesting the idea that Optimus Prime and Megatron were once best friends. But one of the movie's strengths is the way they presented this friendship to make it the heart of the picture, turning this unusual dynamic into a tragedy to how they became the rivals we know them today. It's like if you take the Prince of Egypt and turn everyone into a robot. And as this is set on a whole planet, there are many bots that are featured in this picture to present the origins of the Transformers and how they got their abilities. Since I've already mentioned several times about the former friends, I might as well start with Optimus Prime himself, or as he's mostly called in this, Orion Pax. At the start, he's the troublemaker who wants to show that he's more than a low-tier bot and always brings his buddy to the shenanigans, no matter how reluctant he can be about it. But over time, once he learns the true history of Cybertron, his maturity grows to become the leader he needs to be, as he fights for everyone's freedom to be who they're meant to be.
Now is the time for us to stand up. Together. As one.
As for Megatron, his name in this is D-16. While he's more realistic than Orion and doesn't hesitate to smack him for his stupidity, he's always by his friend's side to help him out. However, he can be a bit more hot-headed, which is why his reaction to the truth of what happened to the Matrix of Leadership is more different than Pax. He lets his emotions get the best of him as he becomes more obsessed with wanting revenge, down to the point of wanting to straight up kill the villains. And the more he lets his anger take over his personality, the more frightening he is, where he becomes a leader in his own right through brute force. Also, if I have to pick my favorite voice actor in this, it's gotta be Brian Tyree Henry. The acting is generally pretty good in this, but it's Henry's performance that shows how his soul transformed, going from the reliable D-16 to the menacing Megatron.
I want to help build a better world.
Like you said, we can be so much more.
When it comes to the rest of the bots, though, they don't carry the heart as much as the two leads, as it results in their roles to not be as memorable as them. At best, they're mainly there to work as the allies. There's Alita 1, the girl of the group and the most disciplined, who is the least tolerant of the nonsense that she encounters.
Can't believe what I'm seeing here. There are miners trying to run in the Iacon 5000.
And B-127, who is later known as Bumblebee. He's just the comic relief to let Keegan-Michael Key sprinkle in his comedy. And like I said, the humor is mixed, so there are times when he can be funny, and other times...
Steve?
Yeah, he's for it.
Oh, Steve! No!
I understand why he doesn't talk in the live-action films. Other prominent Transformers in this include Alpha Trion, one of the last surviving primes that gives the characters their ability to transform and present what happened that completely changed Orion and D's view of the world, and Sentinel Prime, whose role is pretty much the corrupt leader of Cybertron's main city, Iacon. It's also worth noting that some of the other characters from the franchise do make an appearance, and while some would be considered as fan-servicing cameos, their additions do help to add how they became part of their respective teams, such as RC and Jazz for the Autobots, and Starscream, Shockwave, and Soundwave for the Decepticons.
Look, that's Starscream, and you're Shockwave and Soundwave.
Enough.
Gosh, raise your hand if Wave is in your name. There's a lot of Wave.
I will say that some of the characters are among the weaker points of the film. They're not terrible or anything, and they do help make the world building richer, but the roles they play don't go beyond the cliches they embody. Thankfully, Orion Pax and D-16 were strong enough to carry the whole picture, not only to present the transformation of their personalities, but also to show how they became Optimus Prime and Megatron respectively. Sure, the Transformers are more known to the public to be fighters than complex individuals, but one gives them a chance to be more interesting than their transformations. I cannot think of a better way to describe this movie other than this is more than meets the eye. Transformers 1 is an absolutely awesome animated feature that takes the fan-favorite franchise and make it work better than most, if not all, the live-action films. It has some powerful storytelling that makes it highly engaging, wonderful animation, increasingly intense action, immersive world building, and characters that took one of pop culture's greatest rivals and turned them into a friendship that became tragic. Sure, it could have used a bit of a tune-up to have more originality in some of its concepts and better humor, but they don't hinder much on the movie's overall stunning performance. I think it's safe to say that this is a definite must-watch for Transformers fans, but I recommend this to non-fans as well if they want to watch an action-packed movie. Even if you know nothing about the franchise, it actually makes it easy to follow so that anyone can get engaged with it and learn about the origins of Cybertron's history. And if you enjoyed your time with this review, then how about pressing that like button and subscribe to my channel so that we can roll out to find more animated films to love. I'll say again that I am not a big Transformers fan, and I knew nothing about the story of Cybertron prior. But after watching one, that lack of knowledge has been transformed into a newfound appreciation.
Hey, Darkwing.
Don't.
My finger can transform. Guess which one?
Allow me.